welcoming the rain and worrying about Aaron. The latest on wildfires. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Unpredictable. That's how the wildfire situation is being described in Nova Scotia right now. The most serious fire in that province continues to burn in the Annapolis Valley. It's called the Long Lake Fire. So far, it's scorched more than 3,200 hectares. It's still burning out of control. About 100 homes have been evacuated, and while none have been lost, some trailers and campers have been destroyed. Jim Rutherham is the Director of Fleet and Forest Protection for the province of Nova Scotia. He says help is coming in from across the country.
We do have an air tanker group of 802s from Northwest Territory. They continue to work on the fires. We have secured another air tanker group of CL415s. They will be arriving today and deployed to the fire tomorrow. They are from Manitoba. We are expecting 3 helicopters from Saskatchewan as well today. This is all dependent on weather and their flying ability, but we are expecting those today. We continue to have 1 contracted helicopter on the fire in Long Lake. And our DNR handcraft are being kept at Shubenacadie to respond to initial attack because they certainly know the province as well. So that's why they're there. We are very happy as well and grateful to the use of CFB Greenwood. They are housing the air tanker group that we have now and the incoming air tanker group as well by providing lodging for our crews, place from the land, and place from the fuel, and to perform the duties that are responsible for these planes, like cleaning them and taking care of them while they're here.
Scott Tingley is the manager of forest protection for the province of Nova Scotia. He says one of the issues fire crews might have to confront is Hurricane Aaron. The track of that storm has it moving northeast over the next few days. It is a Category 3 hurricane right now. The models put the storm tracking south of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland sometime this weekend. The big unknown is the wind.
What we're expecting from the storm is as the winds increase, they're going to start, as the storm passes, from what I understand, in an easterly direction. So it'll be coming from the east as the storm tracks and passes. Those winds will shift more towards the north, and so and they'll increase, and then there'll be a drier air mass in behind the passage of that storm. So right now, from what I understand, with the track, Sunday, actually, once the storm passes, could be one of the drier and windier days. So that's what we're planning for and expecting. And of course, we'll get refined forecasts that will improve over the next couple of days, and so we'll adjust accordingly.
Rain overnight helped crews slightly with the Long Lake fire, but not enough to significantly slow it down. Across Newfoundland and Labrador, they are thankful for the rain. Premier John Hogan says cooler, wetter weather has helped, but there is a drawback.
There is a low ceiling, which, as we talked about yesterday, will have an impact on aerial asset deployment today, but the return to normal temperatures and moisture can assist in keeping the activity at bay. These conditions, however, are ideal for ground crews to continue their work. So while we do have the issue of not getting the air assets up in as soon as we'd like, it does certainly lend to good conditions for ground crews to fight these fires.
There are 7 active fires in his province. The worst of those is called the Kingston Fire. It's burned more than 10,000 hectares and has destroyed more than 200 structures. John Hagee is a member of the Newfoundland and Labrador legislature. He's that province's public safety minister. He says telling people they've lost their homes is taking a toll.
Even the people in the reception centres acknowledge that making those calls has been very hard on the staff. We have, as the Premier said, not informed everyone yet of their structures because we have wanted desperately to avoid missteps. It is equally bad to tell someone that their house has gone when it hasn't, as to tell someone that their house is intact when it really isn't.
Unlike in Nova Scotia, where the provincial government has banned people from going into the woods because of the fire risk, Newfoundland hasn't done that. It has raised fines for people who violate burn bans, and it's banned ATVs from the woods. The ATV ban was supposed to be lifted this past weekend, but was extended and will be reviewed later today. On banning people from the woods, politicians continue to get cornered on that issue. This week in Ottawa, the federal government's Minister of Emergency Management, Eleanor Olszewski, who represents an Edmonton area riding, was asked if she supports the policy.
Approximately half of forest fires are human caused, and that doesn't mean people set them deliberately, but what it does mean is that all kinds of different accidents, when we have hot and dry conditions, can lead to a critical kind of wildfire situation. And that can include something like a piece of glass, actually just a piece of glass on the ground, and even use of certain kinds of vehicles and equipment. And so, from where I sit, it's so important for all of us as Canadians to do our part to make sure that we keep one another safe.
Also weighing in on that woods ban in Nova Scotia was a Calgary Liberal MP, Corey Hogan, who suggested such measures might become more common because of climate change.
Whether you agree with the decision or not, I think we all have to acknowledge that it underlines just how severe this particular moment is, and that the East Coast is seeing, unprecedented levels of dryness that are fueling forest fires, and this is going to be a consequence as we start to see a changing climate take its impacts on the world here. So, look, provinces have an awful lot of information that's specific to their jurisdiction. I'm a former senior official at the government of Alberta. I fully appreciate that sometimes from the outside, those decisions look different than on the inside. But I think what's important here is to underline that this is a really severe moment for firefighters and for fire risk in Canada. So it's important that we all acknowledge that and we do what we can to try to get these things under control.
There are now more than 1,000 fires burning across the country as of today, 68 considered to be out of control. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
There was a rather tame inflation report released this week by Statistics Canada. The inflation rate fell by slightly more than expected in July to 1.7%. So what does that mean for the odds that the Bank of Canada will finally start cutting interest rates again? Sal Guatieri is back with us. He is senior economist and director at BMO Capital Markets. Welcome back.
Hi, Rob.
What is the inflation situation in the country right now, Sal?
It's improving. So we have the headline rate, 1.7% year over year. So that's pretty low. It came down a bit further in July. Now, some of that simply reflects lower gasoline prices, and about half percentage point of that reflects just the removal of the consumer carbon tax. So some special factors there. But overall, it's relatively low, moving in the right direction. Now, there is one issue, and that is some of the so-called core measures of inflation, when you strip out some of the volatile items, are still running above the 2% target, even in the last few months. They're still running in the 2.5% range or so, and that basically is the view of the Bank of Canada, that the underlying rate of inflation is still around 2.5%. Again, making progress, moving towards the target, but still a bit sticky. And there's the one item in particular that's sticky is rents. Those are still rising at about a 5% yearly rate. There's still pressure on housing markets across much of the country, not in the GTA or Vancouver region where rents are actually falling because of a glut of condos, but across much of the rest of the country, rents are still going up. So that's putting some upward pressure on inflation. We're not seeing much impact from the so-called counter tariffs so far. Even if you look at appliances, for example, those price increases have been pretty tame. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but at least inflation's moving in the right direction downwards.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't have bought that new washer and dryer to save because of the tariffs. Maybe I didn't save much at all. Who knows? Okay. All right. That was going to be my next question. Are tariffs hitting inflation? You say the impact is negligible so far.
Well, we believe so, yes. Remember, the government really has scaled back its planned counter tariffs on U.S. exports to Canada to about 1/3 of what the original plan was. So we're really not seeing a whole lot in the way of higher prices. Some of the food items, yes, there is some pressure there. But again, the one thing I was keeping an eye on were household appliances, fridges, washing machines, dryers. And surprisingly, not much in the way of increase, despite the hefty duties on steel and aluminum, for example, and just the general counter tariffs. So not a whole lot of pressure coming from the counter tariffs.
Okay. So for the last three announcements in a row, the Bank of Canada has held its trend-setting rate steady. It hasn't moved at all, 2.75%. This is, for all intents and purposes, a pretty tame inflation report, at least on the top line at 1.7%. What does this mean for the chances of a rate cut?
Yeah, the relatively tame July CPI report, I think, is a step in the direction of pulling the Bank of Canada off the sidelines. It's been there for the last three meetings and back into the easing game. But I think we will need to see another tame inflation report for August, and maybe even another weak jobs report to get the bank fully convinced that the economy needs some stimulative policy. Remember, the Bank of Canada right now is in a pretty comfortable position. It slashed interest rates pretty aggressively in the last 2 years, so rates are now back to so-called neutral levels, unlike in the U.S., where the Fed is under pressure from several angles because policy rates are still moderately restrictive. The Bank of Canada is in a comfortable position, so it does have some luxury of time. It can wait a little bit to get a little more clarity on trade policies and their effects on inflation and growth, and perhaps a little more time to see whether inflation, the underlying rate, is indeed moving back towards the 2% target. Again, it may take another week inflation report, another week jobs report to get there. We do expect the bank to cut rates in September and to follow that up with a couple more rate cuts by the spring of next year. So another 75 basis points in total. I know the market's not there. Market pricing in one more rate cut, maybe two. But again, it will come down to the data to convince the Bank of Canada that the economy could use a boost with another rate cut or two.
So you think by next spring that the overnight rate could be at 2%?
Correct, yes. And that would be stimulative territory. That will give the economy a nice boost. It factors into our forecast for the economy picking up back to a more normal rate of growth, close to 2% next year. It also assumes trade tensions have stabilized by then. But that does go a long ways, that along with stimulative fiscal policy, in getting the economy back on a more normal growth track next year.
Okay. Thank you so much for today. Sal Guatieri, great to hear from you again.
Welcome, Rob.
Yeah, Sal Guatieri, Senior Economist, Director at BMO Capital Markets. Bank of Canada meets again September 17th, and he expects the Bank of Canada to cut rates at that meeting. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. You can listen to the podcast. You can also listen live all 3 hours wherever you are in the world. Or if you just like listening to the 2 hours of Talkback, you can do that. Just download the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And on Seeker, you'll get all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. And you can download Seeker for iOS and Android. It's Seeker, spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. The Toronto Blue Jays got back to their winning ways yesterday. 7-3 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Max Scherzer pitched 6 strong innings. George Springer hit a 2-run home run. That's his 20th home run of the season. Alejandro Kirk had an RBI single and a 2-run home run, so a good day for him. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. missed this game because of tightness in his left hamstring. But an MRI, they performed an MRI on Vladimir Guerrero, and there's no damage, according to the MRI that he had yesterday. So the Blue Jays now are 25-13 in interleague games when they face teams in the National League. So that is tops in the majors. If you are watching the standings like I am, you will see today the Jays are now 5 games up on the New York Yankees. The Yankees just pounded the Rays in their series opener. 13-3 was the final there. And the Jays are up 6 games on the now struggling Boston Red Sox, who are kind of hot and cold this season. They dropped another game to the Orioles, so they have slipped to 3rd place in the American League East, 6 games behind the Jays. There's a massive series looming for both the Yankees and the Red Sox. It starts tomorrow in New York. Some pitching news for the Toronto Blue Jays as well. Shane Bieber, former Cy Young winner, is supposed to make his debut in a Jays uniform coming up on Friday when the Jays will start a series against the Marlins. Bieber was the 2020 American League Cy Young winner, but he has not pitched in a major league game since April of 2024. He underwent Tommy John surgery for elbow pain, which has sidelined him since then from the majors. The Jays picked him up at the trade deadline. The Jays are going to wrap up their series with the Pirates today. Chris Bassett on the mound for Toronto. It is a 12:35 Eastern time start in Pittsburgh. So the game starts at 5 minutes from now. You can watch it all on Sportsnet, and you can listen to the games on the radio at 95.7 News Radio in Halifax, 570 News Radio in Kitchener, and Sportsnet 960 The Fan in Calgary. And that's why I'm saying, if you want to keep listening to Now You Know with Rob Snow, download the Seeker app and you can listen to us live online. 1 winning ticket. That's it. That's all. Sold last night for the big $75 million Lotto Max jackpot. It was sold in, well, not where I am, unfortunately. Kingston, Ontario. Somebody in Kingston, Ontario has a winning $75 million Lotto Max jackpot ticket. That's one of the biggest Lotto Max jackpots in history. There were an additional 2 winners of the $1 million prizes that were up for grabs. There were a dozen of those. 2 of those were won. So the next Lotto Max jackpot kind of resets, goes to just a mere $20 million this coming Friday. The 649 draws tonight, and they're doing the Gold Ball jackpot. That's $42 million. You win the Gold Ball jackpot in the 649. Good luck, everyone. This is News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
It's time for our Newsday panel. Today we have a special focus today. Our focus is Canada's agri-economy, agriculture and food. Because we have Western farmers being hit by canola tariffs. We have talk about the future of supply management. Harvest season is here, and will we ever be able to afford steak again? I mean, joining us today, we have Professor Stuart Smyth from the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics at the University of Saskatchewan. Hello, Professor. Great to hear from you.
Good morning. Good morning, Rob. Pleasure to be here.
Along with Professor Sylvain Charlebois, who is Director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Hi, Professor. Good to hear from you again as well.
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to Stuart as well.
All right.
Hey,
excellent. So let's get into it. China keeps putting pressure on Canada's canola producers. China recently imposed a 75.8% anti-dumping tariff, is what it says, on Canadian canola seed. Professor Smyth, why is China doing this?
This is a continuation of their retaliation for Canada imposing a 100% tariff on the import of Chinese electric vehicles in the summer of 2024. So back in the spring, China put a 100% tariff on the import of canola oil, canola meal, pork, and seafood products. And this is just a continuation of their political retaliation against Canada.
How important, Professor Smyth, is China as a market for our canola products?
Yeah, they're a huge market for us. So in terms of raw seed imports, which is what the current tariff has been placed on, we export last year was about $3.8 billion worth, and they take 2/3 of our raw seed exports. So it's not a market that we can just, or the canola industry can just suddenly pivot and say, okay, well, we're going to export a little bit more here and a little bit more there. A $3.8 billion market is going to take a significant amount of time to reallocate.
Okay. So, Professor Charlebois, what would you expect the impact to be on Canadian farmers given this move by China recently?
Well, I mean, it's pretty significant. We need to remind your listeners that the canola industry is worth about $43 billion in Canada. It's a real industry with real people, unlike EVs, where we're trying to build something that doesn't necessarily exist so far. So that's one thing. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is China's approach is making a lot of other sectors nervous. Of course, I'm out east here in Halifax, and our lobster industry is very nervous. So far, they are facing tariffs on imports when they go to China, but those tariffs can go up because right now China knows very much how to hurt Canada, and the one way to do it is by hitting on agriculture. So on the one side, you're seeing Canada being the instigator, focusing on one industry that has nothing to do with agriculture. But on the other hand, you see China responding, retaliating, hitting farmers. And that's why a lot in the farming community right now, there is a lot of frustration.
Now, just on that, because the decision to move with a 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs was made to align our trade policy with the Americans. President Biden's administration did the same thing, and it was mere weeks later, if I recall, the Canadian government moved in lockstep with the Biden administration. Do you, Professor Charlebois, see anything happening on the tariff front with the import tariffs on Chinese EVs?
I'm not sure. I haven't been reassured by the tone coming out of Ottawa. There was this acknowledgement by Prime Minister Carney that he was going to look into this, but there hasn't been much, to be honest. And frankly, this has been going on since last year, and for a very long time now, farmers were anticipating this. We were anticipating some sort of retaliation coming from China. So this is not news. And of course, you just mentioned, Rob, that yes, China is accusing us of dumping canola, which obviously is impossible since grains are negotiated on world markets. And I don't believe that farmers are selling canola into China under cost. However, the one thing that China made quite clear is that this is not over. We could see more tariffs down the road unless, of course, Ottawa deals with this. And right now, I don't see any evidence that Ottawa is going to move on anything other than perhaps provide some support to our farmers. But we've never seen Ottawa provide significant and meaningful support to our grain farmers whenever there was a crisis going on.
Okay, yeah, but on that point, Professor Smyth, how would you describe any assistance that Canadian farmers are receiving because of these China imposed tariffs, say compared to other tariff exposed industries from the Trump administration, thinking of steel, aluminum, autos, lumber. What is the Canadian government doing to help hard hit Western farmers?
So what they have typically done in the past on some things is it created a debt situation so that farmers could borrow money to facilitate cash flows, but lots of farmers don't want to take on more debt. They want to see the government reaching out and having dialogue with Chinese government officials about resolving the problem. In June, Canada did reach out and submit a request to the dispute settlement panel of the World Trade Organization regarding the 100% tariffs on pork and seafood and canola oil and meal. And even then, the Chinese government was saying they thought that this was an inappropriate step and this wasn't needed. So China clearly does not want to have any consultations about this. And so I think, the onus is on the Canadian government to be the leaders here. But as Sylvain has said, they just have not demonstrated any leadership capacities in the past few years in this space for agriculture.
When we come back, we'll talk about the never-ending controversy around Canada's supply management system in agriculture. Dairy, poultry, and eggs, and what do the Americans want from our dairy industry? When we come back, it's our Newsday panel, special focus on agriculture today here on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's our Newsday panel with a special focus on Canada's agri-economy today. Professor Stuart Smyth is with us from the University of Saskatchewan and Professor Sylvain Charlebois from Dalhousie University in Halifax. So we keep hearing from members of the Trump administration that they're not happy with the dairy industry in Canada. They don't like that it is supply managed, that it's largely a protected dairy industry. We also do this in poultry and eggs. I heard Mr. Lutnick on television just last week or the week before saying the Canadians, they still haven't figured out milk yet. They haven't figured out milk. Professor Charlebois, what do you think the Americans want us to do with our supply management system in this country? What would satisfy them, do you think?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what they want. But I do know what they're trying to do with it. I actually believe that they're weaponizing supply management to get what they really want. I'm not sure President Trump understands supply management. I don't think he wants to understand supply management. I'm not sure American dairy farmers want access to our Canadian market. Let's face it, most Canadians actually enjoy Canadian dairy products. I'm not sure if tomorrow you give them a choice between American and Canadian products, they would choose American products unless, of course, they're cheaper, but that's not a guarantee. The other issue, of course, is, well, I think that Mr. Trump knows very well how to press buttons, geopolitical buttons with everyone on earth, including in Canada, and supply management is the one thing, the one policy we've always avoided domestically to talk about, to debate on, and we've been avoiding talking about the future of supply management forever in this country because there were two camps: either you were for it, don't touch it, or abolish it, and I think the solution for everyone, starting with Canadians, would be somewhere in the middle, but we never dared to have this discussion, and that's why President Trump is pushing us to figure this thing out as Canadians.
Yeah, and I would say for all, and I mean all of the political parties in Ottawa, there is no desire to even engage in a debate about supply management. Liberals, Conservatives, New Democrats, Bloc MPs, Green MP, they all want to protect supply management, vow to protect it basically to the death. I wonder, though, what the Americans want. I mean, do they just want more access to the Canadian market? Is this a system that they want totally dismantled? What's your sense of it, Professor Smyth? What do you think the Americans are up to here?
Yeah, I haven't seen their dairy industry saying that they want to completely dismantle supply management, but I think they do want it, opened up to greater access for American products. So what we're doing in Canada is we subsidize our particularly our milk production with millions of dollars. There was a really good study a couple of years ago out of the University of Manitoba that estimates that every household in Canada is paying a little over $400 a year in higher milk prices to support these small, inefficient dairies, predominantly based in Quebec. So the average dairy farm in Alberta is over 100 cows larger than the average dairy operation in Quebec. So we all pay higher milk prices to subsidize these small, inefficient dairies in Quebec. And with the new bill that the Bloc Québécois got pushed through in June, it said that Canada cannot reduce supply management as part of any future trade negotiations. So we're sacrificing the economic benefits of 40 million Canadians to provide a benefit to 4,000 small, inefficient Quebec dairy operations, which is absolutely ludicrous. And I think what the dairy industry in the States wants is just fair market access, not a complete dismantle of supply management up here.
Yeah. I mean, how realistic is it? Because there have been calls from free market types, Professor Charlebois, in the past, who said we should get rid of supply management. But how would you even go about doing that? What would something like that cost? I mean, there are significant investments in quota, for example. It would be tens of billions of dollars, wouldn't it? Something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's $48 billion worth of quotas out there, so you would need to compensate farmers. I mean, many of them actually use quotas as collateral. But, I mean, I do think that at some point we're going to need to figure out something that we need to do with provincial boards, with our federal system, with the Canadian Dairy Commission. But to Stuart's point, I mean, there are two dairy industry in Canada, not one. There's one east of Toronto and one west of Toronto. East of Toronto, smaller farms, it's all about fair price. West of Toronto, and I visited actually dairy farms in Saskatchewan just a few weeks ago. They want to compete. They want access, and they want to do something else. So right now there is this division in Canada that doesn't allow for Supply Management 2.0 to emerge, and Supply Management 2.0 means more competitive pricing, a more competitive industry. And right now, in the eastern part of Canada, very few farms or farmers want to compete. And the other part, the western part of Canada, farmers are very frustrated by that.
Okay, be right back and get an outlook for harvest when we come back. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Focusing on the agri-economy, agriculture, and food today with Professor Stuart Smyth from the University of Saskatchewan and Professor Sylvain Charlebois, the director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University in Halifax. Professor Smyth, how's the harvest going to be, in your opinion?
I think it's going to be widely varied depending on what kind of moisture there was. So we saw in southwest Saskatchewan, southeast southern Alberta, there was significant lack of moisture through the spring and in late June, early July. Farmers were allowed to simply cut their crops as feed for livestock. Things were just that bad down there. But other parts of the province, the moisture has been coming at sort of exactly the right time. And so I think some areas are going to have crops that, line up quite well with, say, their 5 or 10 year average. Talking and sort of seeing what other farmers are talking about. Others are looking at some of the best crops they've had while they've been farming. But I do see that some farmers are saying that harvest is going to be a little bit delayed, predominantly due to the amount of smoke that impacted crop development this year. And some farmers are saying harvest is going to be sort of 2 or 3 weeks delayed just due to the amount of smoke that there was this summer.
What's your sense of how harvest is going to go, Professor Charlebois?
Well, unlike Stuart, who's actually in the middle of the land of living skies, he can actually talk to farmers, grain farmers, and they do play a critical role in our food supply chain. I often look at input costs and what's going to happen to prices, and are prices going to impact food prices for all of us at the grocery store? And frankly, this year it's been good. It's been a good year. Not only in Canada, but in the United States as well. They're looking at a couple of bumper crops here and there. Brazil has actually has performed quite well. Also, we're not too concerned about geopolitical issues in Europe right now. So input costs are actually under control, and which is good news. Of course, the big problem we have right now at the grocery store is livestock, and in particular beef. I'm sure your listeners have noticed that beef prices are unbelievably
astronomical.
insane.
Yeah.
I know. And where Stuart lives, there are many feedlots, but they're under catalyzed. The cane herd size is basically the same as it was back in 1989. But we have 15 million more Canadians right now. Same in the U.S. The herd size in the U.S. is the same because of drought conditions that have actually made feed costs much higher. So that's a big problem.
Okay. So I should not anticipate a price break on a ribeye then, Professor? Is that what you're saying? No? Not in the cards?
See more trucks, unless you see more trucks burning on the side of the road like we saw this week in the United States, we should be fine.
Okay. All right. Look, a real pleasure to speak to both of you. Really love the expertise. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Rob.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Professor Stuart Smyth is with the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics. He's at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon today. Professor Sylvain Charlebois, Director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University in Halifax, and that's where he is today, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Talkback up next. Hot one for you today on Talkback. Self-defense laws back in the news. Stand your ground. Castle laws. We'll talk about that on Talkback. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. We have a hot one for you today. We're going to talk about self-defense laws in this country. Ask you if those laws need to change because it's happened again. This is a news story that is going viral now. It happened in Lindsay, Ontario. Smaller size city in Ontario, population 22,000 or so. It's not far from Peterborough. It's in the Kawartha Lakes region of Ontario. Here's what we know so far about this story. Okay, pay attention. It was just after 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday. A man was asleep in his apartment, and he was awakened by the sound of another man who broke into his apartment. He confronted the intruder, and there was a fight. The intruder was beaten, and he was beaten badly. Some might say he was beaten to within an inch of his life. The police were called. The intruder's injuries were so serious, he was taken to the local hospital, and then he was airlifted to a hospital in Toronto. Now, police say the intruder has a criminal record. He was a wanted man. He was wanted on what are being called unrelated charges. The intruder has been charged with break and enter, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, mischief, and failure to comply with probation. So, as I say, been in trouble before. Guy's 41 years old. And he's in the hospital. And when he is released from the hospital, he'll be taken into police custody to await a bail hearing. The man who rents the apartment, and here is the twist in the story, everyone. He has also been charged. He has also been charged. He's 44 years old, and he has been charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. So as you can imagine, cue the controversy, cue the outrage, and cue the calls for changes to the self-defense laws in this country. And the people calling for things like castle laws or stand your ground laws, like they have in some U.S. states. Your home is your castle, or you should be allowed to stand your ground. So think about this. 44 years old, you're sleeping in your apartment. It's 3 a.m. You're in your bed, in your apartment, and an intruder breaks into the apartment. At one point, the intruder had a weapon. An intruder who is known to police. An intruder who has been in trouble before. An intruder is on probation. An intruder is wanted by the police. An intruder, it seems, who broke into the wrong house. Because this 44-year-old guy fought back and beat him up. And beat him up pretty bad. And the police say he used a weapon. Who knows what it was? Maybe a baseball bat, golf club. Who knows? But he beat the guy so badly, he put him in the hospital. And for this, he is facing charges. The victim of the break-in is facing charges for defending himself, for defending his property against someone who broke into his apartment. And let me tell you, some people are really, really whipped up about this. Like the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford. Let's play the brand new clip. Just in from the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, who had a news availability today with the media. Talkback 2 of Doug Ford, please, Curtis.
I
haven't heard this yet.
So this criminal that's wanted by the police breaks into this guy's house. This guy gives him a beating, and this guy gets charged. And the other guy gets charged. But something is broken. I know if someone breaks into my house or someone else's, you're going to fight for your life. This guy has a weapon. You're going to use any force you possibly can to protect your family. Or violence and breaking into people's homes, putting guns to their head. And guess what? Some bleeding heart judge, little Johnny, he didn't have a good upbringing. So we're going to let him out on bail 5 more times because he's on his 5th, being let out on bail 5 times, just to go do the same thing the next day. I'll tell you one thing, I get more calls than anyone in the country. People are done with this. They're absolutely done. They're finished. You should be able to protect your family. When someone's going in there to harm your family and your kids, you should use all resources you possibly can to protect your family. And maybe these criminals will think twice about breaking into someone's home.
1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. The Ontario Premier Doug Ford just moments ago. We talked about this not long ago on this show, back in June. Castle law. Because at the time, Doug Ford was hopping mad about car thieves tried to steal a vehicle right out of his driveway. And there was a story about a man in Vaughan, Ontario. People tried to steal his Lamborghini. He came out of the house. He started shooting at them, and he was charged with a bunch of firearms-related offenses. Now here we are. It's almost the 3rd week of August. Very similar story back in the news. Over to you, everyone. What do you think about this case? You got a guy sleeping in his apartment. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or in the morning, pardon me. 3 o'clock in the morning, someone breaks into his apartment. He gets up, confronts the guy. There's a fight. He beats the intruder so bad, he puts him in the hospital. He's charged with aggravated assault with a weapon. The intruder, already wanted by police, also facing charges. Should this man who had his apartment broke into be facing these charges? Because he severely beat a man. Do you think Canada should have a castle law? It's not how it works in Canada. So should the law be changed? What do you think? Share your thoughts. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, mention that to us. We'll make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So let's kick this one around for a while. A man in Lindsay, Ontario has been charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. He was defending himself after an intruder broke into his apartment. There was a fight. The intruder, well known to police, was severely injured and hospitalized. This is renewing calls for castle laws like they have in the United States. Your home is your castle. Should this man be facing charges? Do you agree or disagree with Canada having a castle law? 1-833-668-2577. Let's get right to it. Derek is in Airdrie. Hi, Derek. You're up first today. What do you think, Derek?
Hello.
Hi, Derek. Do you think this man should be facing charges, Derek? Do you think the man should be facing charges? He was the victim of a break and enter?
No, not at all.
Okay. Why not?
I think it's ridiculous. I've had my house broken into. They came in at whatever time in the middle of the night. My wife sleeping, kids sleeping, broke in, stole keys to a vehicle, laptop, friggin' purse, everything. And there was somebody got caught with my wife's ID, and they said, "Oh, we found your ID, but we can't charge the person that had it because we don't know if they were actually the ones that broke into the house." These criminal rings are so big that they can just deliver it to somebody else and somebody else and so on and so on. And but then a couple weeks later, there's a high-speed chase in Banff, and somebody goes running from the police, and the canine came out and caught these people. And like these people, we get told they're the same individuals always. It's the same people doing the same bloody crimes, and then they house them for a week or two, and next thing you know, they're back out on the street doing the same goddamn thing. Like I said, enough is enough. I mean, if I was the man in Ontario, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd be taking care of the problem.
Here's what he did.
Myself.
I mean, he beat him. He beat him to the
point.
point the guy had to be airlifted to the hospital, and the Crown is saying you went too far. You went too far.
No, I would have beat him a little bit more and saved the helicopter fee there, because that's absolutely ridiculous. Like when does it come, law-abiding citizens doing what they have to do to make their way in this world, this crappy world right now because of the way things are, and these criminals get away with everything, and yet here we are.
This guy is facing charges. Again, I would say this guy is facing a break and enter charge, but he's well known to police. He was already out on probation and wanted on other charges. Already being out on probation, they were looking for the guy. All right, Derek, you don't think he went too far, and he shouldn't be facing charges. The victim. I got you. Jam-packed phone line, so we're going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you, though. Ernie's in Kitchener, Ontario today. Ernie. Hi, Ernie.
Hey, Rob. I just chimed in a bit on the Farwell show there about this, but the one thing I forgot to mention there, last night, it's funny how we're talking about this, but last night, so I heard a big bang at about, I think it was 12:30. I shook the wife, and I panicked. I didn't know. Basically, I was scared, I almost crap my pants in a sense, if you want to call it that way. I didn't want to say the wrong word on the air. Then
I know what you mean.
Adrenaline kicks in. I got 3 kids sleeping upstairs. I ran downstairs, ran past the knife drawer, and then I was thinking, oh man, I should have grabbed the knife. But you're just full on adrenaline, but I wanted to approach whatever happened downstairs before it got up to the kids were. And I turned on all the lights, and sure enough, I see a raccoon smashed a big bird feeder against our window downstairs. So I was so relieved and thankful. But I'm telling you, when you're in that situation, I managed to grab my kid's wooden baseball bat before before I actually got the lights on, and I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? But when you're in that spot, if I would have seen somebody, the adrenaline kicks in so much, you're not thinking whether you're going to make sure you hit them and use reasonable force like the law says. I probably would have beat him. I don't know. I don't know if I would have if somebody would have been there, if I would have actually like killed the guy, or if I would have beat him like so you'd have to get airlifted. I do not know, because you're not thinking like that. You're not thinking rational in that situation. This is my home. I got 3 kids sleeping. You don't have time to be reasonable in the way you're feeling and thinking. And I can just say that. I know, like, it was just a raccoon. But what honestly, if you'd
so
ask
we've
me
heard
now,
Premier Ford, he said it today, and he said it before, we should have a castle law in Canada. Your home is your castle, and enough of this. Well, if you're defending yourself, it has to be reasonable and proportionate. You should be more or less in the United States. You're immune from prosecution if you're defending your castle. What do you think about that?
So this is what I'm going to say about that, because before I had kind of different views. I'm like, well, you should be able to defend yourself but not kill the person. Now I think you're not even thinking rational. If you get in a bar fight and you're just with somebody, you have choices there. You kind of get into that situation. Here, the adrenaline is so high. Somebody's in your space, your home. You're protecting your family. You don't. You're not really thinking rational. So I believe you should be able to do that. It's your home, and that's like, and there's more rights for people breaking in now.
And it's your castle. Okay, thank you. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
A man in Lindsay, Ontario has been charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon after defending himself against an intruder who broke into his apartment. There was a fight, and the intruder was severely injured, hospitalized, had to be airlifted to the hospital. But it's renewing calls for a castle law. Your home is your castle. Should this man be facing charges at all? What do you think about having a castle law? Peter in Halifax up next. Peter, hi there.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Peter. What do you think?
Well, an armed society is a polite society. Now, I believe that this also has relations to the stricter gun laws that are coming in. The state has a monopoly on violence, right? It's funny, the same type of people I hear calling your show and, just knowledge. I was a bush mechanic, so I know these people. The exact kind of people who like shooting and guns and hunting and outdoorsy type are the same kind of people who Pierre Trudeau called a national emergency over. Something to think about, nothing more. And as far as the man getting charged, it's the policeman's job to charge both parties involved in violence. It's the judge's job to find out whether the man is guilty or not. The police simply have to do their job. It's up to the court to decide whether the man has gone too far. Because, especially in this time of abject poverty, homelessness, drug addiction, and all the rest of the ills of society, these poor kids, not some poor kids, they're raised by the state until they're 18, and then they're basically kicked out onto the street. So we don't really know the backstory. Maybe they knew.
No, we don't. We don't. Very good. Yeah, excellent point. Yeah.
And so we'll let the judges figure out the crime, if any, because if the man was down, bleeding, begging for mercy, and the man kept hitting him in the head, then yes, the guy should have shown moral self-restraint.
Right, or some mercy, or whatever the case might. What do you think about, because I'm going to have to keep our conversation tight today because we're very busy today. Your home is your castle. What do you think about having a law? Your home is your castle.
I wish I had a gun. And maybe I would have shot him in the leg. Boom, there you go. Sorry. Done deal. If I shot him in the head, then I'd have to explain it to the judge. An armed society is a polite society, and the state has a monopoly on violence. You know, here in Halifax, we hear many, many stories of policemen really doing awful damage to people. And it doesn't matter who the person is, usually unarmed and drunk. And all the policeman has to say is, I felt threatened. That's it. And they never, ever get a charge. So
Okay.
the state
All right.
has a monopoly on violence. They have to keep it that way. And they are very frightened of us. And they do not want us taking...
You couldn't see a thing where we would have a castle law by the sounds of it. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap up our conversation there because there are other calls that we're going to have to, that we need to get to, Peter. I appreciate your point of view as always. Thank you for calling from Halifax today. We will have to stop here, however, bring you up to date on all the latest breaking news, and then we'll be right back into this topic of your home is your castle. Should we have a castle law? We don't in Canada. If you're defending yourself and you use force, it has to be reasonable and proportionate. And deadly force is always viewed as a last option. It's in no way any kind of, default position. And if the Crown thinks, as it does in this case, you've gone too far in defending yourself, you can face charges. And now that we have a 44-year-old man in Lindsay, Ontario, someone broke into his apartment, he is facing charges because the Crown thinks he went too far. He beat the man so severely, he put him in the hospital. Weigh in, please, on Talkback.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
There's been so much interest in this story that the police in Kawartha Lakes had to issue a statement to the news media. In it, it defends its decision to lay charges against this man who severely beat another man who broke into his apartment. This is what it says, word for word here, quoting. We recognize that the recent media release regarding an incident October 18, 2025 has generated significant public interest and emotional responses. The Kawartha Lakes Police Service appreciates the community's engagement and concern. However, the negative commentary about the officers and their actions is unjust and accurate. The investigators were able to examine all the information and evidence that was available prior to laying any charges. In order to protect the investigation and the rights of any person who is charged with an offense during their court proceedings, only a limited amount of information is being released to the public. The role of the police is to investigate impartially and present findings to the justice system, which ultimately determines the outcome. It is important to remember that charges are not convictions. They are part of the judicial process, which ensures that all facts are considered fairly in court. We encourage you to follow this matter as it proceeds through the justice system. Under Canadian law, individuals have the right to defend themselves and their property. The Criminal Code of Canada, specifically sections 34 and 35, allow a person to use reasonable force to protect themselves and their property if they believe they are facing a threat. However, it is important to understand these rights are not unlimited. The law requires that any defensive action be proportionate to the threat faced. This means that while homeowners do have the right to protect themselves and their property, the use of force must be reasonable given the circumstances. Kawartha Lakes Police Service remains committed to public safety, transparency, and respectful dialogue. We will not be releasing any further information about this incident, end quote. So that's the view of the police service. We know more than you, but that won't stop the calls from some quarters for people who think we need a castle law in this country. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Gordon up next in Calgary. Hello, Gordon. Hi, Gordon.
How you doing, Rob?
Good, Gordon. What do you think about this one?
I'm all in favor of Rob, of your premier down there. At least he's got some common sense.
Okay.
I would like to know how the judges, the prosecutors, and the police involved would appreciate what their reaction would be. Would they say, oh, that's okay, go ahead and steal? We'll just slap your wrist and turn you out next week. or would they protect their property, especially the police, as vicious as they could? Maybe they should be in the other guy's shoes for a change. That's my opinion.
Okay. He beat him to within an inch of his life, though. Was that necessary, do you think? That's what the judge will have to determine. Did he go too far? Was that really necessary?
No, from what I understand, this is a habitual criminal. No, he didn't go too far. He didn't go far enough.
Yeah. He was wanted by police at the time. He was already on probation as well.
Yeah,
So,
it just saved a lot.
serial offender.
Everything. He's just going to get out after he's patched up and go again.
Okay.
And I feel sorry for the cops because all they are is like fishermen, catch and release.
Right.
That's
All
my
right,
opinion.
sir.
Maybe redneck,
Thank you
but
for sharing
whatever.
it. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for sharing it, sir. Joe in Waterloo. What's the view from Waterloo, Joe, today? Hello, Joe.
How you doing, Rob? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir. What do you think about this case?
100%. I think that gentleman that beat the guy to a pulp should be not only not charged, but he should be awarded. I think he should be given like a medal because it's what we need to do in this country. It's the criminals, bleeding hearts. It's pathetic out there what they're doing with regards to just letting criminals off soft, and then if someone comes into my house, into my property, 100%, absolutely. You should have the right to defend your property. 100%.
100%. He beat him, as I say, he beat him so severely he had to be airlifted. They took him to the local hospital. They had to airlift him to Toronto. It was that bad.
Yeah, well, like I said,
the Crown is saying the Crown is obviously concluded here. Well, he went too far. Can't do that. Went too far. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think if they come into someone's actual property, your house, your apartment, whatever, I think Doug Ford hit it right on the head there. I think you should absolutely be allowed to defend your property. And I think I know what the law is. I get it. Let the police have to charge both sides. But I think the police should see the case as it is. When someone breaks into your property, I think it should be 100%. You should be able to defend your property. You don't know what this guy's going to do, especially this day and age. You have no idea what these people are going to do. So you should be able to defend yourself.
And he had a weapon as well. He had a weapon as well, it says.
Even if he didn't have a weapon, you don't know if he had a weapon or not, right? When it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're...
Who knows?
100%, this guy should not be charged. He shouldn't have to go through the anguish and the court cases. The police should see this case as it is, and if this is... Even if we're not hearing it all, maybe the guy was down and out and the guy kept beating on him, but put yourself in that position. Your adrenaline's going to be pumped, and this guy came into your house. You're going to defend yourself as much as you can. I think this guy should be let go, and the rest of his life shouldn't have to get charged, go to court. He's probably going to get let off, which he should be 100%, but he shouldn't have to go through the stresses of the court.
The time, the expense, everything else. Okay. Thank you. All right. Be right back on Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's Lindsay, Ontario. You're in your apartment. 3 o'clock in the morning. Someone breaks in. This 44-year-old man confronted the intruder. There was a fight, and he beat the intruder and beat him severely, put him in the hospital. And the victim of the break-in-enter has been charged aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. Very serious criminal charges. I'm not saying this would ever happen to this man, but aggravated assault, maximum sentence there. And an indictable offense is 14 years. 14 years, assault with a weapon, 10 years. I'm not saying that he's looking at that kind of prison time or anything, but it's clearly the Crown thinks that this individual, in defending himself, defending his property, went too far. And now he's going to have to get a lawyer, fight these charges in court. He's not in jail right now. He was charged and released. But share your thoughts on this, please. Greg, I believe, is up next in Halifax. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Greg. Good, Greg.
I think when you mentioned about the law where it says reasonable force, okay?
Yes.
I worked in the police department for years, and I was a civilian, but, you know, I was always told that you cannot go on the offense. You have enough to defend yourself. Now, in today's society, everybody's got cell phones all over the place. I know mine, my wife's, so it was really close by. He could have picked up the phone, dialed 911, and somebody come down. I mean, you know, but you cannot, you know, I've always told you cannot go on the offense to beat somebody like that. And unfortunately, this man is going to have to answer for that. And it's sad, but at the same time, where do you draw the line? Okay, where do you say, okay, enough's enough here? But if somebody's coming at you with a weapon or something, yes, you can defend yourself reasonably. And sometimes, yes, it might get physical or somebody gets hurt. That's different. But in this case, you know, I mean, it seems to me, you know, he might have just went too far.
Okay. You say, where do you draw the line? Some people want the line redrawn or erased. They want a castle law. Your home is your castle.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Somebody,
I've heard that, yes.
You know, somebody
But at the
breaks
same
into your
time,
house,
though,
you can use deadly force. Deadly force.
Yeah, it's true. But
Right?
again, here
Okay.
now, you have to operate within the confines of the law. Okay, and that's what the law states: reasonable force. Okay, and unfortunately, if you step over the line, well, you know, you're gonna have to answer for it, and you know, maybe it's something that needs to be revisited. I agree there too, but until it does, this is what we got. And it's too bad that this man is going to have to go to court, get a lawyer, and answer these things. And hey, you know, whatever happens if they find him guilty and he has to go to jail or he's given a great big fine, you know, maybe people will think twice. I mean, I'm just saying, I know one thing. When I worked at the police department, we've always told everybody you can use reasonable force, but you cannot go on the offense. And
All right.
beating
Thank
somebody
you.
within an inch of a life is,
Yeah.
you know,
Too far, in your opinion. Too far. And too far in the Crown's opinion. They charged him. Okay, let's move along. Brian up next, calling from Calgary today. Hello, Brian.
Hi there. You can hear
Hi,
me?
Brian. I hear you just fine, Brian. What's your opinion, please?
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot still needs to be weighed out in the courts to truly understand, you know, the level of severity, you know, what potential object was used to beat this man. I think what obviously needs to be taken into consideration is it happened in the middle of the night. The guy was asleep. You know, waking up in the middle of his sleep was obviously probably cognitively impaired, which would suggest that, you know, any beating that he did impose on this individual was not premeditated. So as a result, it's, you know, as the facts bear out in the courts, is let's presume that he does end up being innocent, but ends up costing him tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Would there be any compensation afforded to him in those circumstances? You know, when you refer to the Castle Doctrine, is what's reasonable force, and what did he deem reasonable as opposed to what was presumptively premeditated in the moment when he was broken into.
Okay, where do you stand on having a castle doctrine? We don't have the castle doctrine in Canada, should we?
Yeah, you know what? I think that the castle doctrine certainly makes sense. Every man has the right to protect his castle. However, I think that with protected policy provisions, I think that if it's well laid out, I think that a castle doctrine with presumptive limitations on excess makes sense.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, in the statement, you know, the police are saying we know more than you do. You know, there's only so much we know. That's what the police are saying. They have details that we don't. You know, wait for all the details to come out. We can only work with what we know. But I mean, there are so many ways to look at this, and one of them is, if this, say, ever goes to trial, if it even gets that far, you know, one of the things that would have to be considered by a judge or a jury was that really necessary? Is what that man did to that intruder really necessary? You know, there are so many things we don't know. You know, how big was the apartment? Was it a small studio apartment? Was it the whole floor of a house? When the guy broke in, was he basically face to him with nowhere to go? Could he have fled to a bathroom or a bedroom or a closet, called the police? We don't know. All we know is that when he confronted the man, an altercation happened. There was a fight. And the intruder came out on the losing end. I mean, in a bad way, airlifted to the hospital. The guy renting the apartment grabbed some kind of weapon. That's why he's now charged with assault with a weapon. But it's the middle of the night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's the dead of night. The guy was probably fast asleep and something woke him up. Stranger in his apartment. Was it a stranger? We don't even know that. Did these two know each other? Was this a settling of scores or something? Why did he pick that apartment? Police aren't saying whether they knew each other. But the question is, was it really necessary? The Crown says unnecessary, over the top, over the line, and he's facing charges. Share your thoughts, please, on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Go to Brandon in Vulcan is up next on Talkback. Hi, Brandon. What's your opinion on our topic today, please?
How you doing, Rob?
Good, thank you.
I just got a couple things to say about that. I like to live rural, and a lot of the time, my little beautiful wife's by herself, and you know, people only respect the stick, and that's just the way it is in this world, despite what anyone thinks. So no one's going to respect, you know, people's property rules and the way they feel about their family. You know, there's only two things in the world I would probably die for and kill for, and you know, both of those things are the family. You know, our house is protected with a stick, and it's a boomstick. That's it.
Oh, okay.
And I practice it with the wife. So you come to my house to do harm, we'll figure it out later. But hopefully you didn't bring your cell phone with you. Yeah, that's absolute bullshit, buddy. You know, you end up minding your own business, and next thing you know, your life gets all turned around just because some lowlife wants to come and disrupt my beautiful life. Not happening. And as for the...
so you would support something like a castle law, right? You would support something like a castle law.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
If you... Let's say somebody broke into your house and you met them with your gun and you shot them, you would be charged. I guarantee you would be charged.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I was going to say here was this. You know, hopefully I wouldn't, you know, go to shoot the person with lethal intentions, but he's getting maimed. Secondly, hopefully our fellow Canadians might step up and help pay for that injustice of the court system. And maybe we can do that with this other gentleman.
There's a fundraising effort underway already for the fundraising effort underway to, you know, it would cost a significant amount of money. These are serious criminal charges. Could take years to resolve this in the courts.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
Well, imagine if it went the other way, right? Imagine if it went the other way. So it's worth it. I applaud this man, and he might have taken a little bit too far, but you know what? I envy places like Florida. You bust into someone's house, look to do harm. You're gonna F around. You're gonna find out.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so you're on the Ford line of thinking. This is not the first. Ford said it today, and he said it a couple of months ago that the criminal code needs to change, and we need something like a castle law. It's a popular opinion today. It's not unanimous by any means. We're gonna have to wrap it up there for this hour, though. One of the hottest topics all summer is this one. Thank you for your call. Thank you. We'll pick it up in hour number 2, and give it some thought. We have a man in Lindsay, Ontario, 44 years old, facing serious criminal charges, aggravated assault and assault with a weapon, because he defended himself after an intruder broke into his apartment at 3 o'clock in the morning. There was a fight, and this man beat that intruder severely. So badly, he's in the hospital, had to be airlifted to the hospital. But it's renewing calls for a castle law. in this country that we don't have. Give it some thought during our news update here, and we'll be back taking more of your calls in just a moment at 1-833-668-2577 and hour number 2 of Talkback on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We're talking about a viral story that has come out of Lindsay, Ontario today. This actually happened at 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday, just hit the news media today. You have a 44-year-old man was in his apartment. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody broke into his apartment. There was a fight. The man renting the apartment beat up the other man, the intruder, who was well known to police, out on probation at the time and wanted on other charges as well. He was severely injured and hospitalized. He had to be airlifted to the hospital. The man who rented the apartment is, as a result, facing charges of aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. It is renewing calls for castle laws like they have in the United States, the idea that your home is your castle. Doug Ford weighed in on this today, the Ontario Premier. Let's listen to this.
About the story in Lindsay. So this criminal that's wanted by the police breaks into this guy's house. This guy gives him a beating, and this guy gets charged. And the other guy gets charged. But something is broken. I know if someone breaks into my house or someone else's, you're going to fight for your life. This guy has a weapon. You're going to use any force you possibly can to protect your family. Or violence and breaking into people's homes, putting guns to their head. And guess what? Some bleeding heart judge, little Johnny, he didn't have a good upbringing. So we're going to let him out on bail 5 more times because he's on his 5th, being let out on bail 5 times, just to go do the same thing the next day. I'll tell you one thing, I get more calls than anyone in the country. People are done with this. They're absolutely done. They're finished. You should be able to protect your family. When someone's going in there to harm your family and your kids, you should use all resources you possibly can to protect your family. And maybe these criminals will think twice about breaking into someone's home.
That's not the Canadian law. However, in the criminal code, defending yourself, the force you use has to be reasonable and proportionate. Start there again. Should he be facing charges? What do you think of having a castle law in Canada? 1-833-668-2577. In Halifax today, Ron, you're on the air, Ron. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Rob.
Hi.
My pleasure.
What do you think?
Castle law, 100% support. There's, where are you supposed to be that you can feel safe? That's in your home. You've got your loved ones in there. People make a conscious decision to break in, and they don't know whether they're going to end up killing you or they're just there to rob you. It's like holding up a store. How many of those cases have turned into murder charges because somebody was robbing a store with a gun, somebody went to react, they shot and killed them. And certainly we're so lax on the law in Canada now, it's embarrassing. The members and the police departments, I know some of them get black marks against them every once in a while, but as a rule, that is a miserable, miserable job, and they are generally speaking to be commended for what they do, because I can tell you, I've seen it, and boy, if you're putting your life on the line, and there's a rule basically with that. When you are threatened, you put the threat down. You don't let the threat get back up and possibly come back at you again. And certainly in your own home, that's ridiculous. It's time that the criminals start serving time. I believe if I did enough reading, that Chrétien basically started with the soft law, and that got continued through with the current group that's running the country now. But it's, when you have so many Canadians getting together and voicing opinion that, yes, there should be a castle law, you should have the right to make sure that you're protecting yourself. I have a wife who's not able to protect herself dealing with cancer. Buddy, let me tell you, somebody breaks in that house, they are going down. And I will not stop until that threat has been has been neutralized, and it's just
Again,
ridiculous.
I would say if the Crown deemed that to be unreasonable and disproportionate, you would face a charge. I just want you to be aware of that, the listeners. The listeners to be
I'm well
aware,
aware, and I'm going to say something else to the listeners, because I've heard a couple of guys. I listen to your show quite a bit. If you maim somebody that breaks into your house, you're probably in more trouble than if you killed them, because they're going to come after you in a civil suit for money to be looked after.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Well, some of the laws in the United
when that
States,
happens,
castle laws and stand your ground laws, shield you from even civil litigation in some states.
and I would support that 100%. Again, we've got regular criminals who are in and out of the system and have threatened people's lives before. It's unfortunate that it's the way it is here.
Gotcha.
And people may say, "Oh, well, that poor person that broke in." Well, listen, their opinions will change quickly if their child or one of their parents gets, taken out by somebody that broke in. So hopefully we all get together on this and realize there's one place you should be safe, and that's your home.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Mike in Cambridge, up next on Talkback. Mike, what's your opinion, Mike?
I agree with the last caller.
Okay.
This person that invaded that guy's home wasn't invited in, and he deserved what he got.
Okay. So you would support a castle law?
I certainly do.
Yeah. Okay.
A few of these politicians need this to happen to them, and they might change these laws.
Okay. He beat him to within an inch of his life. I mean, he beat him to within an inch of his life. I mean, was that really necessary? That's what the judge or the jury would have to decide.
He wasn't invited in there, and he got exactly what he deserved.
Okay.
People are sick and tired of this crap going on.
Yeah, understood. Understood, sir. Your opinion. Yeah, emotions are running high on this one. Thank you for your call. We'll stop here, however. And there you go. We're well underway with hour number 2 of Talkback. Lots of time to fit you in on this one. It's a heck of a story, isn't it? It's a heck of a story. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's get right back to it. Lauren in Cambridge. Lauren, thanks for calling. You're on the air. What's
Rob.
your opinion on this Lindsay, Ontario story?
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi there.
My question here would be, has this ever been looked at kind of from the other side? I missed the very beginning, so I'm not sure. But if this was a female who attacked this intruder, would we be looking at it quite the same? I know as a single mother, if someone is in my house, I don't have that ability to judge whether or not the force I've used is going to be enough to stop them until you are clearly aware that it's enough to stop them, because you don't want to be on the receiving end of a retaliation then.
Yeah, that whole angle has not even been brought up today. It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, like if you break into my house at, 3:00 in the morning and I'm there alone with my children, I'm not going to let up until I know you're not able to come after me. So
right.
That's
Okay.
a different take on it. I'm all for the castle law.
You are. Okay.
100%.
100%. Okay. Yeah. Right now, that's not how it works in Canada. As I've explained, it has to be, reasonable and proportionate. And you could even face charges. I mean, if you beat this man, let's say you had a baseball bat or a golf club or whatever, you stabbed him or something, and the Crown thinks you've gone too far, you could be in the same circumstances this 44-year-old man from Lindsay finds himself in now, facing serious criminal charges.
I mean, I guess it's very subjective, because at that point, how do you know what the actual threat is?
Yeah.
If he's there and I don't know whether he has a firearm, a knife, etc., and all I have is the baseball bat, like you're going to use the force that you feel at that moment with all the adrenaline that's going through you, to kind of put that force down until you are sure that you are safe and able to protect your family.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. You know, what if it was a single mom like Lauren? Robert up next in Calgary. Robert. Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. What do you think here?
A couple of your previous callers sort of touched on what I was going to get to, but when I had my training for self-defense, I was taught basically when you're confronted in a situation like that, somebody attacks you, even if, let's say they attack you with their fists, you take them down. You break bones, you beat them unconscious, you do whatever you have to. If they force you to have to defend yourself, because you have no concept. He's coming at you with his fists. Maybe he's got a gun or a knife on him. You knock him to the ground and then back off. He may come up with that gun or that knife. You don't give him that opportunity. And if you end up in a situation like that where you're charged,
yes,
try to go to a trial by jury, because a judge will rule on the letter of the law, and if the law is written badly, not to cover these circumstances, he'll rule on how it's written.
Right.
But a jury will rule under how they feel about the circumstances.
Perhaps, yeah.
We had a case in Calgary about 20 years ago where a druggist actually shot a guy in the back. And there's a lot of background that never made the news. I happen to know a detective investigated the case. I know what actually happened. And the jury, who would have heard these things in court, acquitted him. They felt he was justified to shoot the guy in the back.
Oh, okay. I'm not really familiar with that story. Right.
Well, this guy had robbed him previously, had threatened to, if he testified against him, he had threatened to kill him and his family, and the guy actually attempted to. And when the guy fired shots, ran out of bullets, threw his hands up and said, "I'm out of bullets," and ran out the door. And the guy, believing the guy would make good on his threat later, followed him out and shot him. And he was acquitted. But he would not have been acquitted if he'd had trial by judge.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call. Thank you. Yeah, it'd be an interesting point. I mean, if it did go to trial, I would agree with you. I'd want a trial by jury, not by judge alone. Look, none of us were here that night. The police say we don't have the whole story and that they have details that we don't know about, and we'll have to wait for all the details to come out. But what we do know is there was a fight, and that the guy who broke into the wrong apartment, messed with the wrong guy because he was beaten so badly. They took him to the local hospital and they airlifted him to a hospital in Toronto. The question is, was that really necessary to beat him so severely? The police and the Crown to say, based on what we know, and we know more than you, they're saying it wasn't necessary, and that's why they've charged the guy who is renting the apartment that was broken into at 3 o'clock in the morning. 1-833-668-2577 to join the discussion here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Greg in St. Clemens, Ontario. Greg. Hi, Greg. Are you with me?
I am.
Yep. What's
You
your
can hear me
opinion
okay?
on this? I hear you just fine, Greg. What's your opinion, please?
Okay, well, definitely the law needs to be changed, so I'm all in favor of that. But then the way it stands right now, what I'd be interested to see is out of any past cases, the ratio of acquittal to conviction, because my guess would be that there's more acquittals than convictions out there. So the law needs definitely some tweaking, not say, okay, it's wide open, get your machine gun, do whatever you want, but just it definitely needs, yes, I agree it should be here, but maybe needs tweaking. But then at the same time, okay, let's think of the reality of it. Someone's coming in, and then they said, what are you supposed to, call 911. What do you say? Oh, excuse me, intruder, hang on. Let me make a phone call first, and then we'll continue. It's not sports, but they can't call a timeout, and and then continue on. So it's like everyone's going to just, with whatever, if it's somebody that's totally defenseless, well, that would really, be pathetic. But then if it's someone that's got some kind of, either strength or some kind of way to at least start the defense, then okay, they're not going to say, oh, hang on, let's see, where's the line? Yeah, I better stop now. No, it's just, that's the thing, because all of this is unplanned. I can't see too many convictions really being justified. And especially in today's world, like, get with the times. This is not like Little House on the Prairie. It's just, you got to look what people are doing. Therefore, let's keep up with it at the other end of things.
So for example, in the United States, where they have this castle doctrine in so many states, there's also what is known as a duty to retreat. That's one thing that they would consider. Well, did you have an opportunity to say, lock yourself in a bedroom or hide in a closet, or did you have a safe? Could you have gotten out of the house and called the police, something like that? Or was your first inclination to grab your gun and shoot the intruder, right?
Well,
we don't have that here. This kind of idea. You
don't have time to sit down and sort of have a seminar and think about this. It's going to be reactionary. Sure, it's got to be, and that's the thing. So like whatever's going to happen. You didn't plan this, therefore just adrenaline, whatever will take over, and you might get the worst of it because if you're not stronger than who's ever coming at you, well, that's going to be unfortunate. But then if it does turn the other way like this one did, it's kind of like in hockey. Whoever the instigator, whoever throws the first punch gets the extra penalty, and kind of thing. And then,
all right, thank you. Thank you, Greg. I got to go. Thank you. I want to fit in one more. Emerson up next in Calgary. Emerson, let's go to Emerson here.
Hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
Hi, Emerson. Yeah, I hear you just fine, Emerson. Share your opinion, please.
I'll begin with these words. It's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. And what I mean by that is, you know what? When you go in front of your peers, your jury, and explain to them what happened, they put themselves in your position. At least you have a voice. You won't have a voice from the grave. That's for damn sure. So what this guy did, he's a hero in my books. I would do whatever I have to do to protect my home, my family, and then I'll deal with the courts later. Just like your previous caller said, there was a pharmacist here in Calgary, ran after the guy, shot the guy 6 times in the back. He was represented by a lawyer named Jim Ogle, who then became a provincial court judge. There's been cases in Alberta since, and they've all been acquitted. And I'll tell you why, because jurors put themselves in that position. What would I do if that happened to me with my family? So I'm going to say this. The Crowns have laid these charges. It's all political. Everybody's mouthing off saying, oh, he went too far. At the end of the day, when they have their pre-trials and everything comes tumbling down because of public pressure, this guy's going to walk, and he should walk. And whoever is defending him should take the case pro bono, because this is one of those cases where people need to know it's time we all wake up and we defend our families, and don't worry about the justice system, because when you have a voice, you win. When you're being carried by 6, you got no voice. That's all I have to say. I love you for listening to me. Have a beautiful day.
All right. Thank you, Emerson. Bye-bye. Let's stop here. Bring you right up to date on the latest breaking news. Passions running high on Talkback today. This is News Radio. All right, let's keep those calls coming. We have only about 25 minutes left, and we've had jam-packed phone lines all day on the topic of the story out of Lindsay, Ontario. Somebody broke into a guy's apartment. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The guy and the intruder, they got into a fight. The intruder got the worst of it, severely injured, hospitalized, airlifted to the hospital. The guy renting the apartment now charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. Right back to the phone lines here. Joe in Kitchener. Thanks for waiting, Joe. You're on the air. Hi, Joe.
Yeah, Rob. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm flabbergasted. I can't wrap my head around the possibility that this guy got charged. He should be a hero, like all the other callers have said. And I support the castle law absolutely 100%. Let me throw another wrinkle at you. I got 3 huge German Shepherds, and it's red light all the time. It's always red light. They check anybody and everybody who walks in the door for papers. It is what it is, but it's always red light. If somebody comes into my place, it's green light. I don't even know what that looks like, but I can tell you one thing. I don't think it's pretty. It's not going to be pretty. And then I'm fourth banana in on the melee. So, and I got martial arts training and I got guns, but That's neither here nor there. Rob, you enter a man's house and you threaten him with a weapon, you forfeit your life. Like, I don't care. You give up your right to live because you just put somebody else's life at risk. So I'm totally with all these other callers. This is absolutely ridiculous. If you come to my place, it's going to be a bad dream. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say, Rob. Thanks, man.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's a popular opinion today, and I'm just, in the interest of fairness or balance, I guess you could say, I'm just going to tell you that's not how the law works, and that's why this guy is facing the charges, very serious criminal charges that he is, because the Crown has looked at it after the police investigated it, and the Crown has deemed that it was not reasonable force that the man used, and that's the standard in our criminal law, in the criminal code. 1-833-668-2577. To Debbie in Calgary. Debbie in Calgary.
How are you today?
I'm
I
very busy,
I
Debbie.
had to laugh at the last
Very
caller
busy.
when he mentioned he had a German Shepherd, because I laughed, because that was my first thing. I have a German Shepherd too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everybody can have one of those. Wondering how it's tilting I'm wondering if you've had anybody stick up for the defendant there. And also
A few. It's the minority opinion. It's the minority opinion.
Good. Okay.
Right.
And also, I took a fall 3 weeks ago, and I had to take an ambulance here in Calgary. And I've already gotten my bill for $400. I don't know how I'm going to pay it, but I'll worry about that later. I'm wondering who's paying for his air ambulance and how much that would cost.
No idea.
Like, pretty sure a chopper is a little bit more expensive. Who's paying for that? And also, do we know if this guy has a GoFundMe for us to support him in his lawsuit?
Well, I know you're familiar with Rebel.
Okay.
The Rebel News.
No, but I can. Okay.
The Rebel News, Ezra Levant and his people, they picked up on this story yesterday. They're raising money for him.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Yeah, so...
Awesome. Okay. All right,
awesome.
Let's say, okay, I'm only going to play, only because it's so slanted in one way, okay? I'm just going to play the devil's advocate, okay? I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the big, mean Crown prosecutor, okay?
Right.
Let's say this guy, I don't know, maybe he's as thin as a rail because he does drugs all the time. He realizes this guy pounds him to a pulp. He's on the floor. He's curled up. He's in the fetal position, whatever. Maybe he's begging for mercy, and the guy just keeps wailing on him. Maybe he's beating him with a baseball bat. He's beat to within an inch of his life. Okay.
Yeah. I can speak for personal opinion on that, because unfortunately I had a nephew of mine who was on drugs, and it was a big news story here in Alberta. He was numerous times broke into this property outside of Red Deer, and unfortunately for my nephew, he was shot and killed.
Wow.
But hey, he effed around and found out, sadly. So it was it's big in Alberta, outside of Red Deer. He was broke into this place numerous times. The guy was home and he defended himself, and unfortunately my nephew passed away. So, and you know what?
Okay.
That's unfortunate, but he effed around and found out. So.
Wow.
Drugs or no drugs.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. The police in Kawartha Lakes, which is the region where this happened near Peterborough, Lindsay, Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, say we don't have all the information. They haven't released all the information, and they're not going to release all the information, but they've looked at everything, and they say the force that was used in this case was unreasonable, and it wasn't proportionate to the threat that this man was facing. We should stop, and then we'll be able to fit more calls in the final 20 minutes of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Brian in Calgary up next on the story out of Lindsay. And the victim of the break-in enter being charged because he beat the intruder severely and put him in the hospital. What do you think of that story, Brian?
Hello, Rob. Yeah, we have a law on the books in Alberta, and the victim's name was Eddie Maurice, and Jason Kenney and his UCP government, due to the circumstances that Eddie Maurice basically used a firearm to protect his rural property, accidentally discharged the gun. I guess the bullet struck one of the thieves that were stealing his property in the arm. And the police didn't, they went after Eddie Maurice more than they did the two thieves. So it was a trial down in Okotoks that went on for quite a while. Anyways, all charges were dropped against Eddie Maurice and Jason Kenney, and the UCP government passed a law in Alberta. Thieves on a rural property commencing a crime, if they're injured by a victim, cannot sue that victim. We have the law. You can investigate.
So it deals with a civil matter then, a civil matter, right? Yeah. Okay.
No, they can't sue. They can't sue.
Yeah, they can't sue. Yeah.
Civil court.
Yeah, a civil court.
But you can investigate this.
What do you think about this case?
Well, you know,
was that man justified? I guess the question is, was that man justified in beating this guy who broke into his house to within an inch of his life?
You can only use reasonable force. You know, you got to know when to stop. You can't let the adrenaline take over. And that's what happened.
I guess so. Maybe easier said than done when it's 3:00 in the morning. You're in closed, pretty close quarters there in an apartment in Lindsay. Thank you, Brian, for waiting though. Who do we have up next here? Ian in Paris. Hello, Ian.
Hi, how are you?
Very, very good today, Ian. Yep, thanks. What's your opinion on the matter?
Well, that happened to me probably 7 years ago, where someone was breaking into my house in Oshawa.
Okay.
And I phoned the police, and this event was happening, and it was 6 a.m, and I'm not a morning person. I was newly retired, actually. And and I'm just, you're in a state of mind that, is something else. You're just searching for stuff. And he had a broken snow brush, like a wooden snow brush pointed, and he was just, and so I phoned the police. I said, if he gets in, I had bear spray from a mountain bike trip.
Okay.
And I thought of it at the end, sort of saying, if he gets in, he's getting it. And the lady on the phone said, sir, don't do that. You'll be charged. And you're in such a state, like you're in a state of like,
you're like, this guy's trying to break into my house and you're going to charge me if I try to defend myself.
Yeah. But I said, it doesn't matter. He's getting it if it gets in. I was in a bit of shock for a few days, actually, but, it's, and you're looking around, you're trying to assess what you have. And, I just turned 60. I'm going, and I explained to her, I mean, this guy is like 6'1", and I'm 5'8", and I'm 60. He's getting it,
right.
And it was an old can of bear spray. It might have not even discharged anything, because it was.
So what happened in the end? What happened in the end in that circumstance?
Fortunately, the neighbor across the way phoned the police before I did, so they were on the way.
Right.
So, like, literally, they just tackled him, and it took 4 of them to put him down. I suspect he was on drugs or something, but and there was, and I lived near the downtown area, and then there was this kind of a house that was dealing drugs not far from my house. You know what I mean? And this is today's world. It's you have to, there's got to be consequences, and people got to know that people can defend themselves. But, these circumstances for that guy in Lindsay, I, we don't know the circumstances. It could have been even a, whatever, somebody he knew. I don't know. Like,
yeah, we don't know that, and they say we don't have all the information, and they have information that they're not making public. You know, were they strangers? Do they know each other? Right? You know. Yeah. Who knows?
You really
who
don't
knows?
know what you're going to do till it happens. You know, and
okay.
I was prepared to use the bear spray. Like that, nobody was changing my mind. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like that.
Sure. Yeah. Fair enough, Ian. Thank you. Gonna move along to James in Kitchener. James.
How's it going, Rob?
James? Yeah, very good, James. Thanks. What's your opinion here?
Yeah, I think the laws need to be changed. I don't know when that law came into be, but it needs to be revamped for sure. You can't have people breaking into your home and you can't do anything. That's where, nobody likes the American with the gun law, but everybody has guns in their house. Nobody's breaking in. Right?
Right. I guess it's not that you can't do anything, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be proportionate.
Yeah, that's kind of funny that who can deem what is reasonable and proportionate when you're not in the heat of the moment, right? It's all different.
You're not in the...
When you're sitting back looking from the outside, right? But when you're in the midst of it, right?
Yeah, what if it was your apartment and it was 3 o'clock in the morning and you got a complete stranger standing in your living room with a weapon?
Just wrap them up in plastic, put them in your trunk, take them up to the bush and just leave them.
Okay.
And then nobody gets in trouble.
You would support a change in the law, though? Maybe something like a CASA law? 100%. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, James. We could fit you in there. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've taken more calls on this topic, this story about the man being charged in Lindsay after beating an intruder to within an inch of his life, someone who broke into his apartment. We've taken more calls on this topic than we have on any other topic all summer. The previous most popular topic was the banning people from the woods in Nova Scotia. We took calls for days on end about that particular story, but this one has really touched a nerve with a lot of people, and you can understand why. You can understand why. We can all, picture ourselves being in that circumstance, and it's all over the news all the time about violent home invasions and people being tied up and people being beaten and these roaming gangs of thugs that are breaking down people's doors. Toronto police saying, "Oh, just leave your car keys in your front porch and make it easier. That way you won't get into an altercation with the people breaking into your home." So this has really touched a nerve with a lot of people. Let's go to Lorna, I believe is up next here on Talkback. Hi, Lorna.
Hi, Rob. You know what? We've talked about the victim. What about the criminal? Why isn't he being charged? Why have we heard nothing about him?
He is charged. He's charged. Yeah.
Okay, but my thoughts are that, most people are law-abiding, and it's the criminal element. And I think we've been too lenient on the criminal element for a very long time. Our laws need to be updated, and I agree with the castle. Again, it's, undue force. I mean, as a single woman, if someone's coming into my house, I've got a bat, and you know what? I'm going for the kneecap, and then I'm going for the head. Because I don't know. I'm defenseless. If it's in the middle of the night, you're kind of like groggy. You're trying to find out what the heck's going on, and then the adrenaline kicks in, like this guy. It's fight or flight. So, if he hasn't got the ability to fight, then fight it is. And the criminal element, you know what? You got what you deserved. Thank you.
Okay, Lorna. Yeah, very popular opinion today. Lee, you'll have the last word, Lee, but you've got to wrap it up in a minute. Go ahead.
Absolutely 100% agreeing with these castle laws, because I'll tell you, I had someone break into my house. I was there alone. I had my son, who was 9 or 10 at the time. I didn't have to do anything because I had a 200-pound Rottweiler and a Rhodesian Ridgeback. They took care of it for me. But what did happen was I had to fight for the life of my 2 dogs, which is absolutely ludicrous. These are well trained. They were trained for that job. So because they did what they were supposed to do, I didn't do anything. I didn't have to use a gun, but I'm still in the wrong. And it took me months and tons of money to fight to have my dogs given back to me, who, by the way, were taken away from me that night.
Right. Did you get your dogs back in the end?
Oh, damn right I got my dogs back.
You got your dogs back. Okay. All right.
There was no way they were taking my dogs from me. But the trauma that I had to go through, I had a break-in that night, I had a little kid at home, and I had my dogs taken away from me all in one night. So yes, bring the castle laws in, give us something to protect ourselves with.
Okay, thank you. We'll see what comes of that one. Be watching that one for sure. Thank you for all your calls today, your passionate opinions on Talkback. We'll be back tomorrow. The latest breaking news is next on News Radio.